We're busy chatting already. Sorry to Sarah if she heard us in conversation with the Pet Shop Boys, who are both with us this morning.
Morning.
Neil and Chris, hello.
Morning.
How you doing?
This is very relaxed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. We like it when
That's
it's relaxed.
how we roll on this, yeah.
Tell me and share with us, is this nice for you to be doing press? Do you like the whole thing of putting yourself out there?
It's a duty, but we try to enjoy it. I mean, this is our 15th album.
Yeah.
To have got to that phase seems incredible. I remember in 1985, we signed a deal with EMI Records in those days, and it was for 7 albums. I remember when we signed it, I said, like we'll ever make 7 albums. Because to make 1 album back in the day seemed like a big mountain to climb.
And here we are.
And here we are at 15, yeah. And
with
an album we
Sofa, how many years ago with what was she called?
Oh, we should check.
She was really
approximately
great.
how long
really
ago?
Oh, Selena Scott.
Selena Scott.
Oh, OK.
So we've been doing this for quite a long time.
That was our first BBC breakfast appearance, and what was really great about it was halfway through, Chris started a nod off.
Well, it was very early.
didn't.
It was very early.
And Selena
Were
said,
you being proper
Selena
like rock
Scott said,
stars?
Chris!
Were you actually asleep?
Well, I think I did close my eyes, but I don't think I was fully asleep.
I think that's why you've got the glasses on now. So if we bore
I
you,
actually am
you could
asleep
just-
now.
Yeah.
Are you
yeah.
Sleepwalking.
one of those people who can kind of just appear to be asleep when you're awake? It's quite a knack if you can do
I
that.
could almost sleep standing up if given half a chance.
Just, I call that a superhero skill. I think it is a really
the
special
famous
skill.
designer Karl Lagerfeld,
Yeah.
no longer with us, always wore dark glasses. The story is he used to do that.
Just fall asleep.
To be his rigid Prussian, upbringing, and he'd be sitting ramrod, but actually he'd be asleep.
You know what's going to happen now, Chris? The audience is going to be glued
Yeah,
to
focused on
you
you.
to look for signs of signs of activity. You're here to talk about your new single, your new album.
Yes.
Let's let people have a look at that first.
Okay.
The new single.
Okay.
In the streets of London sang with pop stars. Well, the truth is that they always do.
Who wants to explain the video there, and the images, and the storyline?
The song is, Chris wrote the track. In lockdown, in the various lockdowns, Chris and I would send each other music, or Chris would send me music, and I would send him lyrics back. And he sent this track through, and it sounded a bit like Madonna. And I was thinking about dancing. And there was a documentary on the television about Rudolf Nureyev, the ballet dancer. And the song became about him. And, an amazing life, the Soviet Union, defected in Paris, became a huge star in swinging London. Knew Mick Jagger and Freddie Mercury. And the song says, in the 60s you could feel the freedom. And so the song is really about freedom through creativity.
There is a link, isn't there, with the arts in the sense that you've got him there. You're going to be performing at the Royal Opera House.
On the same stage. Actually, the cover of the single, Dancing Star, is a photograph we got from the Royal Opera House, and it's Nureyev on the stage of the Royal Opera House, and we're doing 5 nights there in the very end of July this year.
I think it's quite interesting because there's more money to be made at the big stadium, surely. But the
There is
atmosphere...
way more money to be made. We could play the O2 Arena for 1 night and made... We don't make any money in the Royal Opera House. But why we do it is because it's a gorgeous theatre, maybe the most beautiful theatre in Britain. And we bring in a completely new audience. And they get to enjoy this gorgeous theatre. We get to enjoy performing on this enormous stage. And everyone has a great time.
Chris, are you awake?
Yeah, we're doing a
I am
condition
awake,
check on Chris.
Yeah.
A bit long-winded, his answers, though, aren't they?
He goes on a bit, doesn't he?
Oh, doesn't he?
Talking of live performances, Jack, our floor manager, saw you at Glastonbury.
Oh,
Jack, that's right, isn't it?
God.
And he very much enjoyed
Hashtag
it.
the worst moment of my life.
Why?
No, he said it... Oh, yours.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was great.
Well,
for
not
Chris
his.
either.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
was
No,
it?
I thought you were talking
Or
about
was it
that.
the worst,
He said you were
worst
brilliant.
moment of his life?
What happened?
Well, actually, the audience probably didn't notice it, turned out. So, in our shows, same one we're doing at the Royal Opera House, there's a screen, and then the screen goes up briefly, and Chris and I appear and walk forward. Glastonbury, of course, is live on the television. We were headlining the other stage on the Saturday night, or Sunday night, maybe, and there were 70,000 people there. And the screen rose by about 10 inches and stopped. And we just looked at each other. And we couldn't talk because you have the music in your headphones. And so we both made a dash for it. And I ran around the front. And Chris couldn't get to his front keyboard in time. So he went to a keyboard position. He had a second keyboard position at the back. And suddenly I run around and I think, I'm here by myself. live on the television. I didn't know what had gone wrong. No one tells you. And I had to do the first 6 songs by myself.
Who were you? What?
With an empty keyboard next to me. And Chris was... And we have 3 other musicians. They were all behind the screen.
Oh, so
which
you
was
were-
still
you-
stuck.
I was playing, but no one could see me. And I was actually trending on Twitter. Hashtag Where's Chris? Which was quite something. It was
And
worth
when
it
you
for
were
that,
big,
actually.
was there like a massive roar from the crowd?
Well,
Or
I
did
had
they
to go
fix
off and
it?
get changed off the first 6 numbers. And I heard this cheer. And our tour manager came rushing in and said, everything's fine now. And then it was fantastic. There was a real rush, adrenaline rush after that, I have to be honest.
But you hated the first 6 songs.
The first 6 songs, it was really an awful moment. But when you see it on the television, I guess I've learned to be professional.
Did you?
because
Did it look, Jack?
doesn't-
Did it seem...
I look relaxed.
Here's the witness. Did
Jack.
you know anything was going wrong?
It was brilliant. Didn't
He
notice.
didn't know a thing.
There you go. So the crowd was happy.
So there you go.
Tell us a little bit about the album, because it's been a little while. Is that right, Chris? And what was the moment when you went, do you know what, we got stuff. Let's
Well,
put it out.
as Neil said, I didn't realise we were making an album. I was just writing music, sending it to Neil. He was sending music back to me, and we were just having a really nice time writing music. And then one day Neil said, well, I think the album's finished. And he'd even sequenced it, the whole thing. He was like... So I was like,
It's like a stealth album.
It was. I was like, I didn't realise it would even started. So I suppose for the nicest way to make a record when you don't actually know you're doing it.
Well, also, because actually, although it's a flippant point, it's a serious point too, because music has come out of sort of pleasure, not under some deadline or a contractual thing or something. We were really, really enjoying it. And I think there's a freshness to this album, which is also to the production by a guy called James Ford, but that really comes out of it because of that, because the circumstances it was written in.
Can I share a reflection with you? I'm old enough to remember watching right at the beginning in the early 80s when you were performing, over the years.
Mid-'80s, yeah.
Mid-'80s. And my impression was that you were both very serious. You, a little bit almost intimidating, very clever.
It was
sort of slightly-
intimidating.
The word is
there's something-
erudite.
there was a-
Erudite.
And I don't even know what it means.
No, and there was just something.
Sure,
There was a kind
erudite
of there was a kind of an aura around you both, particularly about you. That was just like, oh. Was that kind of? Because I know, because we've been here. You're very funny people, and you're very charming. And was there an image thing that you were trying to create a kind of a mystique around, or am I kind of trying to burst the bubble now? What was happening?
There were 2 things. One, we didn't dance music, and we're trying to separate ourselves from that. So we do present quite a stern image, semi-deliberately, but it's also making the most of what we are.
Were you separate then from those acts as well? Like,
They
'cause
were-
we talked to them and they're all, yes, see so-and-so, we're all kind of half in touch, or we all hung out. What was it like for you in the 80s?
Well, remember, in that period, the first half of the 80s, I was a journalist for Smash Hits magazine. So, from those musicians' perspective, I was a guy who used to interview them, and then suddenly was #1 in America with the Pet Shop Boys. So it was probably more odd for them than it was for me. But we were definitely a different thing, and then a lot of dance music came into the charts at the same sort of period, and that initial wave of the 80s sort of faded a bit.
Chris, you're a qualified architect, is that right?
Not quite.
You're an unqualified architect.
Yes, you wouldn't employ me.
You've got both degrees, though.
I did 5 years of it, and I did the BA and the B-Arch. But to qualify, you've got to work for a year
got
and then
2
do
degrees.
Part 3.
OK, so you basically are, but you haven't done it.
No.
What do you think of the place? What do you think? You have a look
I think
around?
actually it's amazing what's happening around here, isn't it? I mean, look at it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And why was the success kind of kicked in, did it? So you were able to...
Well, actually, I
different
sort of... when I went back to do the B-Arch, the Pet Shop Boys was happening, and I was sort of flying off to New York at the weekends to record with Bobby Orlando at Times Square, and it was so exciting doing all of that. It was very difficult to come back to Liverpool and carry on doing architecture, so I sort of slightly lost interest towards the end of the course, really, because the Pet Shop Boys was beginning to happen.
But didn't you say when you were doing like a tutorial, they would ask you about the Pet Shop Boys?
Oh, it wasn't a tutorial. It was the final handing of the work, and the examiners came along, and they seemed more interested in the music than anything else.
Did you get a good-
I actually managed to scrape through with very little work, actually, to be honest.
Well, we won't have.
But we won't do that because I wouldn't
'cause you-
encourage that.
Obviously, you have to work very
quite
hard.
right.
I think you should.
With the new music now, the new album, I think there is an essence, like it's the Pet Shop Boys. Do you have to work at that, or is that just it's inevitable?
I think we have to work at not making it like that.
Oh, that wasn't a criticism. I like
No,
the fact that I know it's.
No, I didn't take it as a criticism. I think that's what we instinctively sound like. I think it's a combination of music and the voice. And we do try to change the sound. I think if we made a heavy metal record, people would say, there they go, typical Pet Shop Boys. It's, there's something we do to do with the style of chords, and there's always a sort of rich chord progression, and my vocals that creates that.
So many of your hit songs over the years are kind of markers on people's lives, moments in time, significant things. Do you have people sharing those kind of stories with you, saying, oh, that song reminds me of...
We do. We even have it in our sort of circle of people we work with, people who've got... Ez Devlin, quite famous stage designer now, met her husband working on the Pet Shop Boys musical. And actually, there's actually a load of instances like that, to be honest. And also, we did the show we're doing, Dreamworld, the tour, which starts again in the end of May. It's a great hit show. And so, for me, singing the songs, each of those songs brings back a lot of memories and back in the time. And of course, it's so many decades now, which seems sort of amazing. So it's like that for us as well.
Chris, does it all come back? You know, when you do the older stuff, is it all just like completely instinctive? It's all embedded in the kind of muscle memory.
Sadly not. I have everything on the computer screen because I can't remember anything. And even we do Palinaro, which is I do a very little minor vocal on, which is only 6 words, and I have them written down.
Do you really?
Yep. And when they come in as well, so none of it is instinctive for me.
That's honest.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think that makes
Then
a
you
lot
don't
of
make
sense.
mistakes.
I'd do that.
I don't make any mistakes. I'm sight reading the whole show.
I always think it's amazing that classical musicians, if you're playing a violin concerto, the orchestra have got sheet music. You're playing a violin concerto or piano concerto, whatever, you have to memorise the whole thing.
I know it.
I don't know how they do it.
I know it. It's been so lovely talking to you.
It's
Oh, is it
very
over?
nice.
I'm sorry.
It's over.
We could have chatted for a long
Could have
time.
done.
Can we not hit a red button and carry on?
Nonetheless, I like the way you did that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
Nonetheless,
yes.
the album.
The album name is.
And was it 5? Is it 5 nights at the Royal Opera House?
5 nights at Royal Opera House. We're also playing in Belfast for the first time in 33 years. Nottingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Birmingham, Europe. So, yeah.
Enjoy.
Lovely to see you. Chris, thank you for
was
staying
fun.
with us.
Thanks for staying away.
Yes.
Take it.
Thank you.
The least I could do.
We will be back. Of course, Breakfast will be back tomorrow from 6. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.